More than there are grains of sand on every beach and in every desert on the whole earth. Not close to it. Hundreds of times more. That is roughly how many little pieces of water are packed into one single drop. One drop, the kind that hangs off the end of your nose, or sits trembling on a leaf after the rain, or clings to your fingertip when you pull it out of a glass. You could flick it away and never give it a second of your life. But I want to stop your hand, because once, a long time ago, I looked hard at a drop of water, harder than I had any business looking, and I have never gotten over it. So come with me. We are going to climb down inside that drop. And every time you think we have hit the bottom, I am going to show you there is one more floor underneath. Let us begin with the drop, just sitting there, doing nothing, being a drop. Why is it a little ball? Pour water into a flat dish and it lies down flat. Let it hang from a leaf and it curls itself up into a tiny dome. Something is gathering it inward, pulling it into a sphere, the way a child on a cold night yanks the blanket tight around their shoulders. That something is the water pulling on itself. Each little piece of water tugs gently on the pieces beside it. Down in the middle of the drop, a piece gets tugged from every side at once, evenly, so it feels nothing in particular, the way a person packed into the middle of a great crowd gets squeezed from all directions and just stands there, going nowhere. But up at the surface, there is nobody above. The pieces at the top get tugged sideways and downward into the crowd, and never upward, because there is no crowd up there to do the tugging. So the surface hauls itself in as tight as it possibly can. And the tightest, smallest skin you can stretch around a blob of anything is a sphere, a ball. That is why the drop is round. This skin is not a figure of speech. It is real, and it is strong. Strong enough that a little water strider insect can walk across the top of a pond without sinking, holding the surface down with its feet like a person walking on a trampoline. Strong enough that you can take an ordinary sewing needle made of solid steel, lay it down very gently on the top of a full glass of water, and watch it float. Steel sinks like a stone, you know that, you have thrown rocks in a river. But the needle does not break through the skin, and so it rides on top of the water like a boat. The water is holding hands with itself across the surface, and that grip is what you are seeing. The whole drop is one big handhold, curled into a bead. Now press your eye in closer, closer than any real eye could ever go, so we will have to do it in the mind. Drop down past the size of a speck of dust, down past the smallest thing you could ever catch in the finest microscope ever ground. Keep falling smaller and smaller until that smooth, clear, calm drop of water stops being smooth at all. Because the smoothness was a lie. Down here the drop is a riot. It is made of countless tiny separate pieces, and not one of them is holding still. They are jiggling, shoving, bouncing, spinning, hurtling in every direction, crashing into each other so many billions of times each second that no counting could ever keep up. The stillness your eyes reported back to you was a fib, the same comforting fib a spinning fan tells when it blurs into what looks like a solid pane of glass. The calm drop is a screaming storm. It has been a storm the entire time, while it sat there on your finger looking like nothing. And the warmth of water, the heat of it, is nothing more mysterious than how hard those little pieces are jiggling. That is the whole of it. When you wrap your cold hands around a warm cup, what you are feeling is the pieces of water inside slamming on the inner wall of the cup, and the cup passing that banging along to your skin, handing you the jiggle. Set the cup on the stove and the pieces jiggle harder, slam harder, until some of them up at the surface are flying so fast that they tear clean out of the crowd and leap off into the air. We call that steam. And the same thing, much quieter, is why a puddle in the road dries up on a cool afternoon with no stove anywhere near it. The very fastest pieces are always escaping off the top, leaping away into the sky. Stop on that, because it hides something lovely. When the fastest, hottest pieces jump away, which ones are left behind? The slower ones, the cooler ones. So the drop chills itself down simply by losing its hottest members. the way a loud party goes suddenly quiet the moment the rowdiest guests get up and leave. This is why your skin feels cold when water dries on it after a swim. The water is hauling your body heat away with it, one fast little piece at a time, carrying off the warmth on the backs of the molecules that flee. You always knew water cooled you. I doubt anyone ever told you that you were watching the quickest molecules desert the ship and take your heat as their luggage. Let me reach into that storm and pluck out a single piece, and hold it up where we can look at it. One molecule of water. This is the smallest scrap of water that is still water at all. Break it apart and you do not get tinier water. You get something that is not water anymore. The little thing is built from 3 balls stuck together. One fat round ball in the middle with 2 smaller round balls fixed to it at an angle, like a round head with 2 round ears. The big middle one we call oxygen. The 2 ears we call hydrogen. 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. Glue countless billions of these little 3-ball, 2-eared shapes together, and you have an ocean. You have the rain. You have the tears on a grieving face, and the sweat on a running horse, and the silver dew on the morning grass. All of it is the same little shape, the same 3 balls, copied past all imagining. Do not let those balls fool you either, because they are the next trick. Take just one of them. Take the oxygen ball, one single atom. If you could blow that one atom up to the size of a great stone cathedral, the whole soaring building with its high ceiling and room for 1,000 people inside, then the heavy heart of the atom, the part that holds nearly every bit of its weight, would be one single grain of rice resting in the very center of the floor, a grain of rice in a cathedral. And all the rest, all that vast empty air up to the vaulted ceiling and out to the distant walls, is where a few impossibly light specks flit and blur about. And that blur, that thin haze of flicking specks, is the only thing that stops your hand from sweeping straight through a tabletop. So when you touch the drop, when you feel it cool and wet and undeniably solid on your fingertip, you are feeling something that is almost entirely empty space, pushing back against your finger, which is also almost entirely empty space. The whole solid world, the table, the floor, your own hand, is mostly nothing at all, held apart by the frantic flicking of those tiny specks. Sit with that. The water is real. You can drink it. It can drown a strong man, and it is built almost completely out of emptiness. I am going to ask you the question now that turned an ordinary drop of water, for me, into something I can only call holy. Where did these come from? Not the drop. The pieces inside it, the 2 hydrogens and the 1 oxygen. They did not begin in your kitchen faucet. They are old. They are so staggeringly old that hearing their age properly should bend something in your mind. Follow the hydrogen with me first. Go back, all the way back, to the very first moments of everything there is. The whole universe, newborn, unthinkably hot, a fire with no edge and no outside to it. As that fire cooled across its first few minutes of existence, the simplest pieces of matter froze out of it, and the very simplest piece of all is hydrogen, just one tiny heart, with a single speck flicking around it. Almost every bit of hydrogen that has ever existed anywhere was made right there in those first few minutes of time itself. Which means the 2 little hydrogen ears on the water molecule on your finger are very nearly as old as the universe. That water carries inside it pieces that were forged before the first star ever lit, before there was an earth, before there was a single thing anywhere you could have pointed to and given a name. You are holding leftovers from the opening instant of the world. The oxygen, though, is a different tale, and to my mind a far better one. Hydrogen is simple, and the young universe made it cheaply and early, the way a cook throws together the easy dish first. But oxygen is heavy and complicated, and that infant universe could not build it at all. There is only one kind of place in all of nature hot enough and crushing enough to assemble an oxygen out of lighter stuff, and that place is the deep, buried core of a star. Inside a star, hydrogen gets squeezed and hammered together so violently that it fuses, sticks, builds itself up step by step into heavier and heavier pieces. Hydrogen into helium, helium into carbon, carbon onward into oxygen. A star will spend millions upon millions of years as a quiet furnace doing exactly this, slowly cooking light little pieces into heavy ones down in its belly, far from any eye. And then, if the star was born big enough, it dies. It does not fade out gently. It detonates in a blast so monstrous that for a few short weeks one dying star can blaze brighter than an entire galaxy of 100 billion ordinary suns. And in that death scream, it hurls everything it ever cooked out into the cold dark. A great expanding cloud of brand new oxygen and carbon and iron flung across the emptiness between the stars. So let me tell you plainly what your drop of water actually is. The hydrogen in it was made in the birth of the universe. The oxygen in it was cooked inside the core of a star that lived its entire long life and then blew itself to atoms, ages before our sun or our earth had even begun to form. Some of that scattered stardust, billions of years later, drifted together with countless other clouds of ruin from countless other dead stars, and out of that gathering came our sun and our planet and the oceans and the rain, and in the long fullness of it, you. The water you splashed on your face this morning is older than the planet it was sitting on. It is a marriage of the first flash of creation and the ashes of a dead star, and it had been waiting quietly in a glass on your table. Nobody ever told you, because the drop does not look like much. But every single drop of water you have ever seen in your life is a tiny silent museum, carrying inside it two of the very oldest stories there are to tell. The drop is a traveler through time in a closer, humbler way too. Think about where this exact water has actually been. Water does not get used up and thrown away. It goes round and round and round, forever. The drop on your finger may have been, only last winter, a gray wave heaving in a cold northern sea. Before that, a cloud snagged on a mountain peak. Before that, locked in a sheet of ice for 10,000 years. Reach further back, and that same water may once have moved through the body of some great creature that walked this earth, long before any human being drew breath, swallowed by it, breathed out warm into ancient air, fallen again as rain, run down a forgotten river to the sea, and lifted back into the sky 1,000 times over. I cannot hand you the exact biography of one chosen drop. Nobody can chase a single molecule across 1 billion years and tell you everywhere it slept. But I can promise you, with no hesitation whatsoever, that the water moving through your house has been very nearly everywhere, and has been very nearly everything, and it is only pausing in your glass for one short moment before it gets up and moves on again. You do not own that water. You are a single stop along an endless road it is walking. Hold the drop up to the window now, into the light, because there is one more thing it knows how to do. The drop bends light. Light travels a touch slower through water than through air, and so when a ray of it crosses the curved skin of the drop, the ray has to swing, has to turn its direction. The same way a line of marching soldiers wheels around when the men on one end step into mud and slow down, while the men on the other end are still striding fast on firm road. Because the drop is round, it bends every ray inward toward a single point. The drop is a little lens, and a whole sky full of drops hanging in the air after a rainstorm becomes a sky full of millions of little lenses, and each one of them takes the plain white light of the sun and fans it open into the hidden colors that were folded up inside it all along. The red swinging by one amount, the violet swinging just a little more, all the colors spreading apart like a hand of cards. Line up enough of those drops, each one splitting the sunlight and tossing the colors back toward you at exactly the right slant, a little over 40 degrees away from the shadow of your own head, and you get the great arch of color bending across the clouds. The rainbow is not a thing painted on the sky. The rainbow is a thing the raindrops are doing to the sunlight, and a thing your own eye is finishing as the light comes home. No two people standing side by side ever see precisely the same rainbow, because each rainbow is assembled fresh, just for one single pair of eyes, out of its own private set of drops. The drop balanced on your fingertip is a small piece of every rainbow that has ever been made. So let us climb back up out of the drop and stand again where we started, looking down at the plain little bead of water on a fingertip. I warned you we would keep discovering another floor below us, and look how far down we went. We found a tight skin holding hands with itself, strong enough to float steel. We found a screaming storm of jiggling pieces that we feel on our skin as nothing more than warmth. We found little three-balled shapes built almost entirely out of empty space. We found the first few minutes of the universe sleeping inside the hydrogen and a whole dead exploded star buried inside the oxygen. We found a wanderer that has been ocean and cloud and creature and rain for billions of years running. We found a lens that quietly manufactures rainbows. One drop. And I have only had the time to swing open the few doors I could reach. There are more of them. There is the chemistry of how this water pulls salt and sugar and the very air to pieces and folds them into itself. There is the biology of the tiny living things swimming inside it, if the drop came up from a pond. And there is a strange, deep puzzle I will leave you with, why water, almost alone among all the liquids there are, swells up and gets bigger when it freezes, so that ice floats instead of sinking, so that a lake freezes over from the top down and not the bottom up, so that the fish go on living all winter in the dark water underneath, so that life on this whole world ever stood a chance at all. A poet once said that the entire universe could be found inside a glass of wine. I have come to think he was righter than he ever knew, though almost certainly not in the way he meant it. Because to truly, fully understand one single drop of water, all the way down to the floor, you would have to understand the inward pull of the surface, and the endless jiggling we call heat, and the hollow emptiness inside every atom, and the forging of matter in the universe's first fire, and the death of giant stars, and the bending and splitting of light, and the long going round of the rain, and the chemistry of how things dissolve, and the small lives that swim, and the odd lucky habit ice has of floating. You would need nearly all of physics, nearly all of chemistry, a great deal of astronomy and biology thrown in. Nature, you see, does not file her subjects away in separate labeled drawers the way our schools do. She poured the entire whole of herself into every ordinary drop and then left it sitting out on a leaf, in plain sight, for anyone who ever cared enough to look closely. And here is the piece I have never once managed to stop turning over in my mind. You are mostly made of this, not a little. Most of you, by a long way, is water. The very same ancient hydrogen out of the first minutes of time, the very same oxygen out of the burning heart of some star that died before the sun was born, the same restless jiggling, the same near-perfect emptiness humming away inside. The drop and the person bending down to stare at the drop are made of one and the same stuff, only arranged in two different shapes. So when you stood there holding water on your fingertip and quietly wondered what on earth it really was, something altogether astonishing took place. Something I do not think we ever say out loud nearly often enough. A small gathering of ancient star ash and primordial fire, shaped by long chance into a creature that can wonder and ask questions, leaned in close to look at another small gathering of exactly the same stuff, and tried with all its might to understand it. The universe, in that one quiet moment, bent itself gently around to take a long look at itself. That is what it was doing through your eyes. It has no other way of doing it. It needs you to look. That is what I saw in a drop of water. I saw that there is no such thing as a small thing to look at. There is only a small amount of looking. The next time a single drop of rain comes down and lands on the back of your hand, you do not have to flick it off and forget it. You can stop. You can hold still for a moment and remember that you are carrying the beginning of the universe, and the ash of a dead star, and the very rain that once fed creatures gone for 60 million years, and a tiny lens that builds rainbows, all of it folded together inside one ordinary bead of water that the entire weight of human science still cannot completely explain. So tell me this, and think about it honestly before you answer. The next time you truly stop and look hard at one plain, ordinary thing all the way down to the floor, what is the smallest thing you have ever found a whole universe hiding inside of?